For years, people in a quiet American neighborhood kept complaining about a really strong, disturbing smell coming from one house. Neighbors called city services. They called the gas company. But no one could ever figure out where the smell was coming from. They also noticed something strange. The woman living there was constantly buying air fresheners. Like a lot of them, she was clearly trying to cover something up. The smell got even worse in the summer. At times, you could even smell it from outside, just walking by the house. Now, think about that for a second. So the question is, why didn't this raise red flags sooner? Because around that same time, women in the area were going missing. For a long time, no one connected the dots. These cases stayed unsolved and unrelated. At least, that's how it seemed at first, until one investigation finally brought everything together. The first disappearance was reported in October 1996. Over the next 2 years, 8 women vanished. They all had something in common. They were vulnerable, often alone, and living in the same area. Detectives started digging. They tracked routines, looked into vehicles, interviewed witnesses, and one detail kept coming up: a white sedan seen near several disappearance sites. That detail would turn out to be important later. There was even a suspect. He was questioned. He took a polygraph test, but there just wasn't enough evidence to arrest him. And that's where things started to slip. And with each new disappearance, the mystery only deepened. Investigators noticed patterns, similar victims, similar circumstances, but the connection still wasn't clear. Later, case files would show that the victims had predictable routines, something the killer carefully studied and used to his advantage. Which makes this even more unsettling. Months went by with no real progress. The case was complicated, different circumstances, no solid physical evidence, and several key mistakes slowed everything down. Agencies weren't sharing information. Health services knew about the smell. Police knew about the missing women, but no one connected the two. And that disconnect turned out to be critical. The main suspect wasn't thoroughly investigated early on, even with red flags like the white sedan and the odor. Witness statements weren't properly aligned with the suspect's movements. The pattern in victims wasn't recognized soon enough. Complaints about the smell weren't taken seriously in relation to the disappearances. Forensic tools weren't used quickly enough to link the cases. Meanwhile, the suspect blended in perfectly. He was polite, kept in touch with neighbors. His home looked normal on the surface. Nothing seemed out of place. Even his own family, who lived in the same house, later claimed they had no idea what was happening. Everything changed when one woman, who survived an attack, gave a detailed description of the house and her attacker. And this is where everything shifted. That's when things moved fast. The man investigators were looking for was Kendall Francois. Born July 26, 1971, he lived with his parents in the same house where the crimes happened. He was quiet, reserved, methodical, and he used that house as his base. To everyone else, he seemed completely normal, which is what made him so difficult to suspect. He worked as a school aide and was known in the local community. Nothing about him stood out, except one thing: he weighed over 300 pounds. When police searched the house, they made a horrifying discovery. And this is where the case takes a dark turn. Inside the walls and attic they found the remains of 8 women. Each body had been wrapped individually in plastic bags. It showed just how organized he was. All the crimes happened in that one house, which allowed him to operate without being noticed for years. Let that sink in for a moment. Investigators confirmed that he specifically targeted vulnerable local women. DNA testing was used to identify the victims. Francois was charged with 8 counts of murder and 1 attempted murder. The crimes took place between October 1996 and August 1998. What's even more disturbing, his family was living in the house the entire time and still claimed they knew nothing. After his arrest, Francois confessed almost immediately. No hesitation, no denial. He didn't even try to deny it. Francois pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During the trial, his mental state was examined, including whether he fully understood his actions. Witness testimony and physical evidence played a critical role in securing the conviction. By that point, the evidence was overwhelming. He served his sentence in New York state prisons. He remained withdrawn and showed no real remorse. Kendall Francois died on September 11, 2014, from natural causes while in prison. And even then, nothing about him had really changed. His behavior never really changed, right up until the end. This case shows how a long investigation, careful analysis, and one crucial lead can finally uncover the truth. Every detail, the timeline, the victims, the arrest, the confession is fully documented. The victims' names are not mentioned out of respect for their families. In the end, it all came together because of a survivor's call, forensic evidence, and a search of that house. And in hindsight, the signs were there all along. So, the real question is, how did something so obvious go unnoticed for so long? And more importantly, could it have been stopped?